In just 2 hours, you can consolidate your knowledge of a subject in a really meaningful way. You can use every minute of those 2 hours to make sure that you are covering the wide range of different things that you need to understand about a subject, looking at it from different angles and making sure that you are able to go into an exam and absolutely ace any question. And right now I'm going to be taking you through the 2-hour study block schedule that I use day in, day out, that helps me achieve in my exams, and that I really am excited to share with you because I think it is genuinely going to be so beneficial. It is perfect, when you don't have 8 hours in a day to be sat down and studying, you've got other things to do, but you want to make the most of your time. This is exactly how you're going to do it. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Erin Merrill University, where I share with you my favourite study tips, hacks, tricks, schedules, everything. And today we're going to be focused on how you're going to curate a 2-hour study block that is actually going to be effective. Enough with the waffle. I'm just going to go straight into things. So this is a 2-hour block that is going to be 2 hours of studying. It is not going to be 50 minutes and a 10-minute break, 50 minutes and 10, no, this is 2 hours, but it's mixed up. So it's not 2 hours of you reading a textbook or doing questions or sitting down staring, and that can feel very overwhelming. This is broken up into really short segments. The longest segment is only 25 minutes long. This makes it super achievable and super active. Your brain is so focused, but it doesn't get bored because you're not doing the same thing for too long. So the way that we're going to do is we're going to start with your first 10 minutes, and this first 10 minutes is going to be dedicated to planning out the rest of the 2 hours. I want you to set your very specific learning goal. So what do I mean by that? I mean, your learning goal isn't something like, oh, I'm going to study biology. That's not very helpful. Your learning goal is going to be something much more specific. So for example, I have a microeconomics exam tomorrow, and I could set my learning goal as study microeconomics, but that's not very helpful to me. So the study goal that I'm going to be setting for myself for the 2-hour block that I'm going to do as soon as I finish filming this video is I want to really understand behavioural economics. I want to go through the principles, I want to go through some practice exam questions, and I want to make sure that I consolidate my understanding of that topic. That is a bit more of a comprehensive goal. So pause the video, and I want you to set the goal that you are going to be achieving in the next 2-hour study block as soon as this video is finished. Also in this 10 minutes, you're going to preview your materials, so you're going to get out any textbooks that you need, any class notes you need, any note pages that you have, whatever. You're going to make sure it is up, it is available, it is on your desk, or it is nearby, it is up on a tab on your laptop or iPad if it is a digital product, and clear your desk, clear your mind, take a minute of those 10 minutes to just sit there and be, and try and quiet your mind, try and feel a bit more relaxed, and that's going to really prepare you for getting into the study session. I know a lot of people really don't like this correlation between, oh, you need to be mindful, you need to be, thinking about yourself, but it is so crucial. Being able to do well in exams is so fundamentally tied to the way you look after yourself, the way you treat yourself. And I feel as though personally, I came to this realization much too late, but I'm sharing it with you now so that hopefully you're going to be able to understand that and implement that across your studying process, no matter what. I also want you to get up a study timer, Pomodoro timer, or just any timer on a phone, on an electronic device, or if you are one of those incredible people who has physical timers still, then get one of those. Something that I would really recommend that you do is you take a sticky note or just a little piece of paper, write down that goal that you have for this session, place it in front of you, and that's going to be there for the entire time as something to remind yourself as to what you are working towards, what the purpose of this session is. And then you're going to move into your first deep study block of 25 minutes. So you're going to set the timer, and in this study block, I want you to be reviewing the materials really actively. So if you're reading through a textbook, I want you to be reading through, but also writing out key things on a separate sheet. So writing out little Q&As, creating a bit of a question bank, which is where you write the question on one side of a piece of paper, the answer on the other. So it's question, 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 answer, answer, answer. And it just creates a little self-test sheet that you essentially have after you've read through a textbook or watched a video. You could also use the Cornell note-taking method if you're watching a video and you enjoy using that, or you could try mind mapping as you're going through, because obviously the difference between mind mapping and blurting, to come back to this, is that mind mapping, you're looking at the material and then putting it into the form of a mind map, whereas with blurting, you're not looking at the material, you're just sort of writing everything down. That's how those two are different. And you might want to create flashcards for anything that needs memorization. But essentially, this first 25-minute block is you reviewing the material. Then for the next 10 minutes, I want you to stand up, because I don't want you to be sat at the desk all the time. That's going to make you feel more lethargic. So I want you to stand up, and I want this to be an active recall 10 minutes. I want you to close all of your notes, put away your textbook, put away your videos, and I want you to go and try and explain to yourself all of the things that you just learned. So stand up, pace around your room if that helps, and just go through the content that you have just learned. Explain it in your own words. If there is anything that you can't explain at any point you get stuck, I want you to note that down, and I want you to then go, once you've sort of explained the rest of it, and actually relook at this section. Make sure you know those definitions, make sure you know those concepts. It might require you to watch another video, to go back to your textbook, to revisit your class notes, but I want you to make sure that you are straight away picking up on those concepts that you didn't really understand, going back and making sure that you then do understand them. After that, we are going into our next 25 minutes of deep study. So the focus for the first 25 minutes was to review the material. The focus for this 25 minutes is to be actively engaging with the material. So if in the first session you'd created a question bank, I want you to go through that question bank. I want you to try and answer those questions without looking at the answers, and then obviously go and check and make sure you got them correct. If you get things incorrect, obviously going back to the original resource and making sure that you do actually understand the concept. If you'd created flashcards, I want you to go through those flashcards. Basically, I want you to be engaging with your own materials. This isn't quite doing practice questions yet, but this is engaging with the way in which you sort of first came across the material in this first deep study session. So you could also be using things like the whiteboard technique, which is basically blurting on a whiteboard. You could just do normal blurting, or you could even extend the sort of active recall that we were doing in the previous 10 minutes and do some more of the Feynman technique if you find that that is something that is really useful for you. Now for the next 25 minutes, this is where we are looking at practical application. This is where you're going to get up practice questions, and you're just going to go through them for 25 minutes. You're going to make sure that you do one question and then immediately mark it straight away, just so that you know you're not carrying forward the same mistake into multiple questions. And when you do go and look at the mark scheme, if there is an examiner's report available for those questions that you are doing, do try and look at that examiner's report as well, because that will give you best practices that you can then apply in future questions. But this is really important because what we've had is a 3-step process of 1, getting to know the material, 2, practically understanding the material, but 3, then testing your understanding of that material on exam style questions. And those are the 3 ingredients that make any study session a successful one. For the next 15 minutes, once you've done that 3rd deep study session, I then want you to do a final review and recall. And the way that this is going to work is for 10 minutes, you're going to do some blurting. If you've already done blurting, great, you're just going to do some more. If you've not, well then, introducing blurting. And if you're unfamiliar with the premise, it is essentially just writing down everything that you can, as much as you can possibly think of. You're going to do that for 10 minutes, and then for the next 5 minutes, you are going to review everything that you've just blurted. So you're going to compare it to those initial resources, check, is there anything that you left out? Add that in one colour. Is there anything you got incorrect? Change that in another colour. And for everything that you add in and change, I want you to be really committing that to memory. If you're the kind of person who likes to have cheat sheets, I love to have a good cheat sheet. I make so many cheat sheets, I've got a pile of them right here next to me. Then note those things down on a cheat sheet, because they are perfect. The things that you misinterpreted or didn't quite remember, to look over just before you go into an exam to make sure that they are fresh in your memory. So that is going to be your final review and recall, and you'll notice we've still got 10 minutes left of these 2 hours. Well, 10 minutes after the final review and recall? Well, for 5 of those 10 minutes, you are going to summarise everything that you've learned. You're going to basically write a paragraph that just summarises what are the key words, what are the key ideas, key equations, key formulae, draw any key diagrams. It sounds a bit like blurting, but this is more coherent. This is a summary that you, for example, would envision being at the end of a textbook chapter on whatever you've been studying. So you're trying to do something that is slightly more polished. It's not going to cover everything. It's not going to be completely comprehensive, but it is going to be a summary that forces you to really condense everything that you've just learned into a couple of sentences. The final 5 minutes, I want you to just reflect a little bit. What went really well during this study session? Did you find you were losing focus at certain times? Why might that be? Do you feel like you have genuinely improved your knowledge? Because so few students will ever check in with themselves after a study session, but it is so fundamentally important that you actually ask yourself, okay, did I gain anything out of this study session? What did I gain? What helped me gain those things? Because if you're not doing that, then how do you know that the study methods that you're implementing are actually working for you? Because what works for me might not be what works for you. What works for your best friend might not be what works for you. You always need to be checking in, and giving yourself 5 minutes at the end of a study session to do that is the perfect thing. So that is how you're going to structure your 2-hour study session. Summarizing the best practices, you always want to be thinking about active study techniques over passive study techniques. Whenever you are using the Feynman technique, I want you to be asking yourself why. Why does this work? How does this work? Why does this key concept come into play in this context but not in this other context? Always be inquisitive, question yourself, really engage with the material, pretend that you're a really annoying toddler who just asks why to everything. And that's how you're going to really get to the core of what a subject or a topic or a certain concept actually means. So those are the sort of things that you really want to be incorporating as you're doing things. Obviously, make your environment as distraction-free as possible. Try and put your phone away unless you're using it as a timer. If you're using it as a timer, there are some brilliant timer apps that you can get that whilst the timer is going, you cannot leave that app. I think that is really, really useful if you're the kind of person who's really quite tempted to just, take the phone and a little quick scroll. No, not during this 2 hours. You can scroll afterwards. So make sure your environment is free from distractions. Make sure it's fairly quiet. So if you can get to a library, or if you like to have background noise, a cafe perhaps, that can be really, really good. And obviously, energy management, keep some water with you, maybe some study snacks if you need them. And just, if you're having one of those days where you know that your brain isn't going to be braining, there's no point pushing it. There's no point trying to cram information, because what you'll do is you'll make your brain even more tired. So this feeling is going to last for multiple days. Whereas if you just took an afternoon off, for example, then the next day you'd be able to go straight back into things and absolutely smash it. So that is my perfect 2-hour study schedule. I'm off to do a 2-hour study session, and I will see you in the next video. Drop in the comments any questions that you might have, any recommendations for future videos that you would really like to see. And thank you so much for supporting my channel so far. It's been so exciting to see it grow to so many of you, and I'm always grateful for when you share these videos with your friends, when you tell people about the channel, and I absolutely love to see it. Bye bye.